We live under the illusion of democracy, the power of the people to determine our destiny and to elect officials to look after our interests. But unfortunately, this kind of democracy has failed. We need a different kind of democracy because this democracy is controlled by the wealthy, the rich, who control the electoral process. The authorities are usually from the rich, protecting the rich interest and not the middle class and poor interest. The authorities, the government, the school system, the judicial system, the media are authorities that make us weak, nerdy, poor, stupid, and obedient to serve the rich and the powerful interests which control everything in a society. In the Western civilization, it's always like that. It's unfortunate. Life is still in the feudal age. It's a modern feudal age. It's a veiled feudal. It's like a masked feudal age, but it's a feudal age. The rich are enslaved to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. That's the way it is. The fundamentals of life are not taken care of. The rents and the mortgage are a very perfect example as to how the majority, 90 to 95%, are enslaved by survival and just paying the rent, the mortgage, the food, and the fundamentals. I mean, if the home business and the apartment business are some of the biggest expenses, why is it that the government never looks into that? Why is it that the government does not get involved in that? Because they represent the rich. The rich finance the elections. The rich actually send their own people to run for elections. It takes $50 million to run for president in the United States. It's very expensive to be in politics and to be known in politics. And a poor or middle-class person is not able to run. When we go to school, they forge us to be employees, not owners, not creators, not Bill Gates, not Bezos, not this type of person. They basically want us to be an employee of IBM or some big corporation. Well, why can't we learn how to own a corporation, how to open a business of our own and control our destiny? Why is it that we're after a desk job after 22 years of studies? We're kept in the dark about money in the school system for the most part, unless you get into the business side of school, which few people get into. You follow the regular classes. You're in the dark about money. You're in the dark about rent, about mortgage, about price of survival, which will own you by the balls when you get out of school. Well, why are we kept in the dark about this? The rich people and the powerful people don't want the poor to understand power and money. And that takes place in the school system. It's kind of like a conspiracy to keep us stupid to life, stupid to power, and stupid to money, right in the school system, year after year, which is a very long sojourn in the school system. I think one of the biggest examples of slavery to the rich is the mortgage itself. There's something called fractional reserve lending, which means the bank needs to basically have 10% of the money that it's lending you. If you need a $300,000 loan to buy a house or to buy a business even, it's a 25, say in this case, it's a 25-year mortgage at 4.5 interest rate, $1,660.42 a month. If you pay that for 25 years, you will pay about $498,000, $198,000 more than the $300,000. And the interest that you're paying is the interest on the $300,000. You're not paying the interest on the $30,000 that it's actually costing the bank, if that, which sometimes I don't even think they even have that $30,000. Who checks this kind of thing? The fractional reserve lending laws are made to expand the economy. Well, why isn't the government profiting from this? Why is it that private banks are profiting from this? Is the government rich? Most governments are not rich. They don't have big surpluses. They have big deficits. The United States government is 26 trillion or something like that dollars in deficit. Can't they use fractional reserve lending that is used by the banks to knock out, to erase their deficit? No. The banks are more powerful than the government. The governments are afraid of the banks. The banks make a fortune. They make a 660% profit on a $30,000 investment over 25 years. They make $200,000. They put in $30,000 to make about $200,000 in a single house. And the horror of all of this is that we have people working 25 years to own a shack, to own a house that's not exactly the Palace of Versailles here. We're talking about an average home here. Real estate is one of the fundamental foundations of paradise. We need cheap homes, we need not expensive homes, and we need very, very low mortgages. So if we paid interest, for example, on the fraction of the reserve lending, if we paid interest on the $30,000, it wouldn't be that expensive to own a home. But we pay interest on $30,000 that is mostly artificial money. $270,000 of this $300,000 is artificial money that banks simply puts into your account. Very few people know about this. Most people believe that the money you get from a bank is real money from deposits. That is not true. The bank is allowed to lend out 90% of the money that it has. Isn't it any wonder that the banks are rich and the people are poor? That the banks are rich and the government is poor? Is there something wrong in all of this? Money and power are a very big deal, and the soul needs to understand money, the power of money on this planet, to make the soul happy. Money is very important. Power as well is very important. If you don't have any power, you're going to be bossed around. You're going to be exploited. You're going to be exploited for 25 years paying for a house instead of like 4 years paying for a house. Why can't we have cheap homes? It's not in the government agenda. It hasn't made it to the government panel. I mean, the fundamentals of life have not made it to the government's panel. Why not? It's not in the rich people's interests. That's why.